Let's dig a little deeper into this whole concept of intellect versus emotion. The truth of the matter is, everything that you and I do, almost everything for sure, if not everything, we do because it satisfies an emotion. It either does one of two things. We either do something because it increases our pleasure psychologically, or it decreases our pain psychologically. Now, I didn't make that up. A very famous man named Sigmund Freud said that. Everything we do because it has a psychological motivation to either increase our pleasure or to decrease our pain psychologically. People use cocaine because it increases their pleasure. Recreational cocaine users do it because it increases their pleasure. Other folks do it because it, for a temporary period of time, takes them out of the hellhole that they are in. Takes them out of the psychological, painful situation they're in. People have sex, obviously, for pleasure. People buy boats and condos and vacation homes and go on cruises because it has a psychological, pleasurable experience. It literally increases the positive emotions within their body. They do that. So you can name any, and I defy you to name any behavior we do that cannot be traced back to a psychological motivation to either increase our psychological pleasure or to decrease our pain. People are motivated to do things for pain or pleasure. Both of them are motivators and can be used as motivators in the selling process. However, you will get more mileage, you will extract more money from people, and you will do it faster when you identify people who are experiencing psychological pain and then help them avoid or get rid of that pain than you will by helping them increase their pleasure. Yes, they will buy to increase their pleasure, but they'll buy a hell of a lot faster to get rid of their pain. So that's really what you want to look at. And if you're selling something that is pleasure motivated, you would want to try and position that against what happens if you don't get this. All right, you got this great condo here, that's a great deal. You already own 3 houses, you don't need another house, but you'd like to have this vacation property. Well, the pain part is if you don't act fast, somebody else is going to snap it up. And you're going to have a tremendous lost opportunity. So you turn that opportunity, that pleasurable thing, into look what you'll miss. So you begin to position that differently and turn it around. Does that make sense to you? How you do that? So that's employing the principle of scarcity into everything, which is a very smart thing to do. Whatever you have, you want to employ that and position that so that there's not much of it, your time included. So as we look at intellect versus emotion, we're all emotional creatures. We do things based on emotion. Now, in the human brain is a tiny region called the amygdala, a section of the cerebral matter so ancient that some scientists refer to it as our lizard brain. Its purpose is to ensure survival and all the complicated emotions and behaviors that survival implies. It is here that our basis of instincts thrive. Sex, fury, fight, the earliest markers of more than 100 million years of adaptation and survival. It is here that our atavistic dreads of snakes is passed from generation to generation. In this small, dark place lives the killer that is in us all. The modern portion of our human brain has built up around the lizard brain, like a walnut cloaking a seed. However, when sufficiently stimulated, there can be an electrical transfer of behavioral control from the modern rational brain to the cave-dwelling primate that hides within. That's from a novel by Randy Wayne White. If we look at the neurophysiology of the brain, we literally can break the brain into three parts. There are three brains in one. Our brain is comprised of three parts. The centermost part, the primitive brain and the brain stem, is responsible for motor control. It's what keeps us alive. It's what, when we walk outside and see a snake, we jump before we mentally recognize that wasn't a snake, it was just a stick. That's what our primitive brain is designed to do, and that's why as a species we're still here. The mid part, or the second part of the brain, is called the limbic system. It is the seat of all emotions. Happy, glad, sad, mad. All emotions reside in the limbic brain. And the third or outer part of the brain is that part that we normally think about, that thin gray matter called the cerebral cortex, which is where the rational thought process takes place. But at the core of our being is our emotional component. We are emotional creatures. We are not rational creatures. All one has to do is look around the world for ample evidence of the fact that behavior is motivated by emotion, not by rationale. People do not make decisions based on what's rational and smart. They make decisions based on emotion. Greed being among the most powerful. Okay? You want to appeal to the limbic system, not the rational cerebral cortex. If you have an intellectual discussion with someone, that's all you're going to have. They are not going to make decisions based on rational logic. If they were, we wouldn't have all the problems in the world that we have. You want to get through and get to the emotional seat or the limbic system. Some characteristics of the limbic system is that it is self-centered. We are all self-centered. Your prospect wants to know what's in it for me. Your prospect, when they first hear about you, they are thinking, who are you? So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? And you must answer those questions, primarily, what's in it for me? They don't want to hear about your company. The fact of the matter is, they don't give a shit about your company and how long it's been there and family owned and yada, yada, yada. They don't care about any of that stuff. Who cares? The fact of the matter is, nobody cares about you and your company. They only care about themselves. And the sooner you come to that realization and get away from talking about what you do and who you are and all this stuff, and start talking about them and what their issues are, the more effective you're going to be at manipulating people's feelings to get them to do what you want them to do. And yes, it is manipulation of feelings. We live in a world that is full of manipulation. If you have children, you are in the manipulation business. So don't tell me you're not trying to manipulate human beings. They are. They learn, we all learn as an infant how to manipulate our parents to give us a bottle or change our diaper. And when they get to be 28-year-old children, they're just as good at it or better as they were when they were 28 months. Except now they're manipulating you to pay their cell phone bill instead of change their diaper. It's the same thing. If you are married, you have attempted manipulation. You also have found out there's a limit to manipulation. Okay? So don't hand me this crap that you're not, that you're somehow, you're above manipulating people. Now, it's all relative. If you manipulate people for good versus bad, there's a difference. There's a difference between manipulating people to get them to do things that are in their best interest versus manipulating them to get them to do things that are harmful to them or injurious to them or not in their self-interest. And every one of you, when you manipulate people to give you money for your product or service, you're manipulating them to do something that's in their best interest. So don't feel bad about that process. If you're hung up on the whole manipulation thing, you will never press hard enough to get people to do what they need to do. And if you will embrace that concept and get over it once and for all and just decide you're going to get really good at it, then that's when you'll make money. The limbic system is concrete. It's not very abstract. People don't resonate to abstract concepts. The limbic system is very visceral, earthy. So when you're talking with people and you want to engage the limbic system, come off that highfalutin intellectual language and get down to where people can understand stuff. Put it on their level. Put it down there the same as you'd be talking to somebody if you're sitting around having a beer with them. Don't use fancy language. Just get right down to it, because that's how people talk anyway, right? The limbic system remembers first and last, but forgets most everything in between. There's a concept in advertising called first mental image and last mental image. When you are giving a talk, you want to open big and close big, put all the stuff that doesn't matter in the middle because your audience goes to sleep during the middle of your talk. So does your prospect. So you must open big to get their attention. You see movies. Movies open big, don't they? What all the James Bond movies do. They immediately open big, suck you right into the theme, but they open big. So they can capture your mental attention and keep you engaged for 2 hours so you're not thinking about whether or not you left a coffee pot on the stove. So you want to open big in selling. This agenda that we talked about will help you open big. The limbic system is visual, very visual. And it's strongly triggered by emotion. Now, if you want to study neuroscience and you want to dig down deep into this stuff, there's plenty of stuff for you to read to help you understand all of this at a deeper level. I find it fascinating to read. Other people find it boring. But nonetheless, there's plenty of information to learn along those lines. You don't have to be a brain physiologist to figure out how to make it work for you, though. Dr. Joseph Ladeau is the director and neuroscientist at New York City University. And he has shown that all of our senses, it's the visual input that reaches the limbic system the fastest. That's because the sensory nerve carries information 25 times faster than the auditory nerve. The sensory nerve will register in the brain faster, but the auditory message will resonate longer. That's why you can hear the first few bars of a song you haven't heard in a long time, and you know exactly what it is. Well, the sensory gets there faster, but it also kind of goes away real quick, too. So if you're looking to engage somebody quickly, you want to use a visual demonstration of things. You want to show somebody rather than just tell them, necessarily, although you use both modalities. In fact, neuroscientists have demonstrated that the limbic system registers images long before the cortex can recognize or analyze them. Let me give you an example of that. When you meet with someone, your mental recognition instantly with them forms an impression of them that really doesn't register rationally in your brain, but nonetheless it forms a mental impression of them, and you have sized them up, right, wrong, or indifferent, in about the first 2 seconds. There's a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And he said people form impressions of other people in 2 seconds. Right or wrong, they form the impression within 2 seconds. You don't get 30 seconds when you walk in on a sales call. If you're thinking 30 seconds, you're about 28 seconds late. When you walk through that door, you better reek of something important. Because when they see you walk through the door, they're making their decision whether or not to do anything with you. Unconsciously. See, that's why selling is about who you are, not what you do. All this other stuff, it's good, but it's not going to overcome the first impression when you walk through the door and they see something that walked through the door that looks like 40 miles of bad road. You ain't overcoming that. So you better, when you step through the door, it better be the best thing you got. You know, you better be full of piss and vinegar and project something that they think is impressive. In an interview with the Gallup Management Journal, Ladeau said a couple interesting things. They asked him, what has the greater effect on a person, emotion or thinking? And he said emotion, because emotional systems were in place early in evolution. So why? He said because emotions, particularly negative emotions, are survival linked. You won't live very long if you don't have fear reactions. And here's the kicker. Emotions are not designed to be controlled. They are designed to control. You may think that your life is governed by intellectual, rational thought. Ain't no way. It's governed totally by emotion. Don't ever say to someone, get your emotions under control, because, folks, it's impossible to get your emotions under control. You can get your behavior under control. You cannot get your emotions under control. Jesus Christ did not get his emotions under control. He went in and raised hell and knocked over tables in the temple because he got angry too. Okay, so don't come at this thing like you can control your emotions. And that ain't going to happen. It's not physiologically possible. Can you trick the brain into a response, they asked him. And he said, yes, our brains can sense something and react without conscious awareness. Reactions to subliminal responses are stronger because you can't protect yourself. You don't have time to put up filters. Some psychologists say that the unconscious is most easily influenced when the conscious isn't aware the unconscious is being worked on. That's called selling without selling. How much information does the unconscious influence things like purchase decisions? And he says, in truth, most of what we do unconsciously and then rationalize the decision after the fact. Now, this isn't from some sales trainer or psychological dude. This is from a neuroscientist. So how can you tell if you've engaged an employee or a customer? What is the engagement behavior? And he says, you could probably use pupil size changes. This is a good measure of attention. Now here's what happens. People have no control over this. When people are excited and engaged about something, their pupils dilate. It happens, by the way, during sex. So if you're having sex and somebody's eyes aren't dilated, somebody's faking something. People cannot control the pupil size. See? So next time you're with a prospect, gaze into their eyes when you're talking with them and see if they're with you or not. If their pupils are pinpoint, they are checked out mentally on you. Can you stimulate trust? You could use the word, can you fake trust? Okay? He says to provoke trust, a salesperson has to put himself in the mind of another. And the customer has to have a theory of the salesperson and the company and an idea of what they will do. What did we just do that satisfies that right there?
Agenda.
The agenda. It takes away all the mystery about what's the salesperson going to do. See, if you carry in a big old bag with you and you set it down, the prospect is thinking, when's he going to reach in there and grab a club and hit me over the head with it? Don't carry stuff in with you on a sales call. If you want to be really good, just carry in a little portfolio with you with some questions. And if you get really, really, really good and you don't need the written questions, you can walk in with nothing, not even a pen. And you go to sit down with the prospect and you're asking some questions like, Jake, that's really important to you. Can I borrow a pen?
Sure.
You got some paper?
I was going to make him ask for it, wasn't I? Sure, I got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what did I just do? I give the appearance like Columbo. I am not some trained killer here. I'm harmless, right? But I know in the back of my mind, I got it all wired out here because I know all the questions. There's nothing he can possibly say or do that I'm not ready for, that I haven't role played and rehearsed in my mind 1,000 times. I just gave him the idea that I'm not some trained killer.
That you're unorganized.
Yeah, that I can't possibly be harmless. I don't even have an order pad with me, right? I don't have a contract. How can I do anything? He says, what do you show me? I'm like, show me. What do you want me to show you? I don't have anything to show you. Huh?
What about the agenda?
That's, well, either way, guys. I mean, I'm just giving you another example of how it can be done. This thing can be done a little bit more than one way. I wouldn't advise you go in and do what I just did necessarily, but if you're good enough, you can do it, because then you can do the agenda. You can do the agenda verbally, and you can still get away with it. Probably what I would suggest most all of you do. It's okay to carry in a portfolio with some questions, but get away from carrying all that crap in you that you would carry in with carry in just a plain old portfolio. Okay, I have done that, by the way. That I've done that just to see how people would respond, and they all respond the same way, kind of incredulous that you know, who is this guy? I want them to think I'm harmless. But underneath all that, they have relaxed their guard and they ain't got a chance. They've relaxed their guard, they've let their guard down, they've quit being defensive, and I'm like, gotcha. Okay? The hardest thing that you'll do when you do that, the hardest part of doing what I just did, is keeping a straight face. Okay? So if you want to engage the limbic system, says David Ogilvy, an advertising expert, you must grab the attention in the first frame with a visual surprise, because then you stand a better chance of engaging the viewer. So make a powerful impression early, or you may lose them forever. Keep the limbic system alert and attentive, because the limbic system has the tendency to want to check out and go to sleep. So begin your message with a grabber that is centered around your buyer's most prominent pain. And you should know what your buyer's most prominent pain is. If you are in touch with your buyers, you will know what their most pressing problems are. Bless you. All right. First place that I can find that pain was talked about in the selling literature was in a book, How to Sell Yourself to Others, by Elmer Wheeler, who was a sales trainer. And the book was written in 1947. I happen to have a first edition copy of that. Wheeler was doing about $2 million a year in sales, and his entire travels were by train. So he spoke to a lot of people, made a lot of money as a sales trainer back in the 40s. According to Barbara Fredrickson, who is a PhD in research psychologist at the University